Well, hey there. And I would love to start off by asking you a question because we're going to be talking about that your body isn't broken. The rules is what's changed. And that's the issue. So, like I said, I would love to start off by asking you a question. Have you ever thought to yourself, or have you ever caught yourself thinking that I just don't feel like myself anymore? I just don't recognize myself in my body anymore. Maybe you're sleeping, but you're still exhausted. Or maybe you walk into a room and you forget why you went in there, put your keys down, forget where they were. Yeah, I've had those moments myself. And maybe the weight that used to respond to just a few small changes in your workout routine don't seem to just move the knot at all anymore. Or maybe you found yourself staring at your computer screen, unable to remember a word that you have known for years. And in the middle of all that, you quietly start asking yourself, what's wrong with me? Right? Have you ever done that? I've done that. And I know countless of other women who have done that as well. But what if I told you that maybe nothing is wrong with you? What if the real problem is not you, but it's the strategies that you are relying on today that you created years ago? And perhaps those strategies that got you here today just are not going to be the strategies that are going to get you to the next level. Perhaps. So think about that, right? Because a lot of times what used to serve you in the past, health-wise that is not the same strategies health-wise that your body needs today. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Welcome back to the Michele Broad Show. So if you're new around here, I'm Michele Broad. I'm a certified women's health nurse practitioner, and I've been practicing women's health for over 30 years. And I've had the distinct privilege and honor of caring for women through every stage of their lives. And if there's one thing that I have learned, it is that women are incredibly good at taking care of everyone else. Sometimes so good that they stop listening to themselves. So here's the thing. My goal with my channel, as I always tell you, isn't to simply give you more health information, because Lord knows the internet is flooded with information, right? You can go get it anywhere. My goal is better. My goal is to help you understand your body better so that you can make confident decisions about your own health. Because my friend, once you start understanding what is going on in your body that's unique to you, everything changes. So I want to start with something that I hear almost every single day. That's how I want to start this conversation. And what I hear almost every single day from women who sit across from me, either in my regular practice here in Colorado or on my telehealth practice, is they tell me that they just don't feel like themselves anymore. They just don't see themselves in their body, and they wonder where she went. They tell me that they're tired, they're frustrated, or perhaps they tell me that they're worried. And almost always, the person or the woman sitting across from me always somehow thinks that her body has failed her, that it's something that she's doing or she's not doing, most likely, right? And they simply think and they tell me, oh, I just need to try harder. They say, is there another supplement that I can try? Is there a better nutrition program that I can put into place? Should I change my workouts? Do I need to become more disciplined? Or maybe they just think that slapping on a patch of estrogen and taking a pill for their progesterone and using HRT is going to magically solve everything in their life. But my friend, here's the thing. After more than 3 decades caring for women and sitting across from that woman, because that woman used to be me that I used to stare in the mirror at, I've come to believe something very, very different. I don't think that your body is failing you. I think she is communicating with you. And those are two very different conversations, right? If I said, I think your body's failing or your body is failing versus I think she's communicating with you. The latter gives you much more peace of mind, and it helps you move into more of a health independent type of state. And here's the other thing. One of the things I notice about the women that I care for every single day is that these women, like myself, and most likely you who's watching, is that you are not lacking in discipline. They are definitely not lacking in discipline. I am not lacking in discipline. In fact, discipline is usually one of their greatest strengths overall. They're the women that everybody depends on. They're the ones who remember every single appointment, who finish the project, who stay up late, who volunteer, who care for aging parents, who raise children, who someone, who keeps everything moving and keeps all the parts going and juggles all the balls in the air, right? They have not a discipline problem. What they have in my world is they have an exhaustion problem. And that is a very important distinction to make, because a lot of times we can be going and going and going and pushing, pushing, pushing. And we think that that's the problem, but it's not. The problem is sometimes we're just exhausted because we're carrying so much all of the time. So here's the thing. When does pushing through cause things to really start to crumble apart? Can I tell you what I think is really happening with these women and what happened with myself? Because many of us have spent decades becoming experts at pushing through, right? You've pushed through college. They've pushed through college. You've pushed through building a career, perhaps. They have pushed through pregnancies, or you've pushed through raising children. We've all pushed through difficult times in our life, maybe a marriage that was up and down. We've pushed through caregiving. That's what I've been pushing through. We push through stress. We push through deadlines. We push through, loss. And after enough years, pushing through stopped becoming something that we did. Okay, it's not something that we did. It slowly becomes who we are. It becomes our innate identity. People admire us for it. We admire ourselves for it until one day it just stops working and you find yourself exhausted. Okay, so here's the thing. If I'm being honest with you, and I always want to be honest with you, this one hits close to home for me, because there have absolutely been seasons in my life, my friend, where I ignored every single signal that my body was trying to send my way. Not because I didn't know better. I'm a healthcare provider, but I did understand what was happening, but knowing something and actually living it out are sometimes two very different things. There were seasons where my patients needed me more. My family needed me. Work needed me. Life needed me. And I convinced myself, just like many of you do, that I'll take care of myself after the busy season is. I'll take care of myself someday. And maybe you've even said something similar. After the project, after the holidays, after the kids graduate, after life starts to settle down. But here's what I've learned. Life rarely settles down on its own. Sometimes we have to decide that we are worth paying attention to before our bodies force us to take a look at that. Okay, because the body will force you in some respect to start slowing down. So here's the thing. Something I think is fascinating about the human body, and especially about women's bodies, is that the body is always adapting. She adapts to stress. She adapts to poor sleep. She adapts to skipped meals. She adapts to emotional labor. She adapts to caregiving. She adapts to long work days. She adapts to years of putting yourself last. For a long time, that adaptation looks like resilience, right? We think, oh, we're so resilient. We can just power on through everything. You think, look how much I can handle. I can do it all. I'm Superwoman. But eventually, adaptation starts looking like pure exhaustion. And that's where many women find themselves in their early 30s, late 30s, moving into your 40s and into your 50s. They're still functioning. They're still showing up. They're still leading their teams. And from the outside, right, everything looks perfect, like in Pleasantville, right? But inside, something totally feels different. And this isn't simply about getting older, because a lot of times if you go to your traditional provider or whoever, or you talk to people, your friends, everybody just chalks it up to, oh, that's part of aging, right? Well, It isn't simply about getting older. Here's what's going on. During the perimenopause and the menopausal transition, your biology is actually beginning to change in ways that affect nearly every system in your body. So let me explain it to you this way. Estrogen changes, your progesterone changes, your sleep architecture starts to change. Muscle mass gradually starts to decline during this time. Insulin becomes much more sensitive to changes. Your stress response changes. Recovery changes. These systems do not work independently. They do not work one off by themselves, which is why I so often say your hormones, my friend, they do not live in a vacuum because everything in your body is connected. Connected. So here's a thought that I want for you. Think about this for a moment. When you were 25, or let's say even 35, you probably could skip lunch, drink coffee all day, sleep 5 hours, push through a stressful week, and still feel relevantly functioning, right? We've all done that. Could you? Yes. Could I? Back then, yes. Many women tell me that they could. So we're all in the same boat together. Now, the exact same behaviors produce completely different results from then to now. Because what you could rely on to get you through when you were in your late 20s, early 30s, and maybe even your late 30s is not the same strategies or health strategies that are going to be able to carry you through your 40s and your 50s. They're just not, because your biology has changed. So here's the thing. The exact same behaviors that you did then that you're trying to do now, they can produce completely different results. That's why a lot of women come to me and they say, hey, I'm doing all the stuff that I was doing before, but it just doesn't seem to be pushing the needle. It's not working. I'm still exhausted through no matter what I do. So here's the thing, and I try to tell them, just like I'm going to tell you, that isn't weakness, my friend. That isn't laziness, and it isn't failure. That's biology. And if we could all see it from that perspective, we would look at it so much differently, and we would not be so down on ourselves, and we would be taking off that pressure. What I need for you to understand is your operating system inside internally has changed as you're going through different stages in your life. And yet many women are still trying to run today's body using yesterday's strategies. Let me say that again. Yet many women are still trying to run today's body, the body that they're living in today, by yesterday's strategies. Maybe that worked back then, but it's just not going to work now. Okay. So imagine this, trying to install today's software on a computer from 20 years ago. It just would not work, right? You would not get the same result. So that's the same thing, because at some point, the problem isn't about effort. It's not about you doing, pushing through, meeting deadlines and keep on going and going and going. It's about compatibility, right? It's about compatibility. The same thing happens biologically. The same thing happens. So here's another question that I want you to consider. What if discipline isn't what's missing, right? What if discipline, we take that out of the equation? Because I know that you, just like all these women that I take care of, they've already mastered the discipline. I've already mastered the discipline. What if you spent decades proving how disciplined you are? Then maybe the next chapter isn't about becoming more disciplined, right? You've already done that. And you did it in a time when your body could keep up with all of that. And you really didn't have to pay much attention to the strategies that you were putting in, because your body, when it was younger, could adapt to those changes, whatever they were in your life, a lot easier. Okay. So maybe the next chapter, like I said, isn't about becoming more disciplined. Maybe it's about becoming more aware of what is going on in your biology. Maybe it's about learning when to stop overriding your body's signals that she's trying to send to you. Because your fatigue is not a character flaw. Your brain fog isn't proof that you are losing your edge or that you're going crazy. Your changing metabolism isn't evidence that you failed and that you can no longer lose weight. They may simply be signals, and signals deserve curiosity, not criticism. Let me say that again. Signals deserve curiosity. Be curious about why they're happening, not criticism. So I want to leave you with something that I want you to do this week. So here's what I'd like for you to do the rest of this week. I want you to stop trying to fix anything. Seriously, don't try to fix anything. Don't start another diet. Do not buy another supplement. Don't even overhaul your routine. Instead, this is what I want you to do. Become curious. Pay attention. When is your energy the highest throughout the day? When do you feel drained? Okay, what do you feel constantly drains you? How does stress affect your sleep? How does sleep affect your focus? Start observing, right? Observation instead of judging, because understanding always comes before meaningful change. You can't change something until you understand what is even going on, right? You look at your business, you try to find out what's going on first before you implement changes. You wouldn't just walk in and say, okay, we're just going to change everything if you don't know what's wrong. Same thing with your body, right? So, one of the biggest lessons that I have learned over the years is that health and success are not competing priorities. In fact, your health is one of the greatest leadership assets that you'll ever have. Your energy affects how you think. Your sleep affects your patience. Your blood sugar affects your focus. Your biology, my friend, influences the way you show up in every single area of your life. So your body isn't getting in the way of your success. Your body is trying to support it. It simply needs a different strategy than it did 20 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And that is okay. So if today's conversation helped you see your body a little bit differently, I would love for you to subscribe to this channel or listen to us on Apple Podcast and join me here each week. Again, my hope is that every episode helps you to understand yourself a little more and reminds you that you are not broken. You are not broken. You simply need a new lens in which to see your health through. Because your hormones, like I said, they do not live in a vacuum. Your body is telling the story your life has written. So until next time, my friend, stop guessing and start understanding. May God richly bless your life, and bye for now.